Good morning. So today we are going to discuss about the electrical properties of solids. Okay. So when we are talking about electrical properties, that means in case of solid actually the movement of electrons. Okay. Actually the electrical conductivity of a solid is coming from the movement of electrons from one point to another point in that solid. And in case of ionic solid, the conductivity is coming from the movement of ions in their electrolytic solutions. Okay. And depending upon the speed of this movement or the speed of this electron from one position to other positions, or the speed of this movement of the ions from one position to other positions, the solids are divided into three categories. Okay, the first category is known as your conductors. Actually the conductors can easily conduct electricity. Okay, so how can we know whether the solid is a good conductor or a bad conductor? Okay, so we can actually quantify, or we can calculate the conductivity of a solid by using an equation. Okay, and this equation I think you already know for, in the physics actually we already know that the resistance of a wire, let's suppose this is a wire having length capital small l. Okay, small l, and the cross section area of that wire, or you can say that that rod, or you can say even say that this is a cable. Okay, the cross section area of that cable or that rod is equal to, let's suppose, capital A. Okay, so then the resistance of that solid is actually directly proportional to the length of that wire or that cable or that rod, and inversely proportional to the cross section area. Okay, so we can write capital R, which is represent the resistance of the movement of electrons or movement of ions, is directly proportional to small l divided by capital A. Okay, and we can use a proportionality constant, which is rho, to remove that proportional sign. Okay, and this rho is actually known as the specific resistance. Okay, and now what we are talking about, we are talking about the conductivity. Okay, that means how fast the electron or the ions can move from one position to other positions. Okay, so we can calculate this by using the reverse of this specific resistance. That means the 1 by rho. This can be represented by kappa, and where kappa is actually your specific conductance. Okay, so actually now one question is coming in our mind. Okay, why we actually require this kappa instead of only r? Even we can write 1 by r to represent the conductivity. Okay, so 1 by r is actually capital G, or conductance. So we can use that now, 1 by r. But why we need this kappa? The thing is that we can use the resistance value to compare the two wires or two different types of substance, but the thing is that the length and the specific the length and the cross section area of the two wires must be exactly same. So it is slightly difficult to prepare exactly same wires. Okay, so what we can use that kappa. So by knowing the value of this specific conductance, we can get some information about the conductivity of the substance. Okay, so what about the unit of this kappa? So if you see this equation, then you see the value, the unit of L, the SI unit is equal what? SI unit is meter. Okay, and the SI unit of your area specific, actually this the area capital A is equal to what? Actually a meter square. Okay, and the SI unit of the resistance is ohm. Okay, so finally if you use this units in this equation, then they will going to give you the unit of this kappa, and it will be actually ohm inverse per meter. Okay, so we can actually define this conductor, or which is actually the first type of the solid on the basis of this electrical conductivity. Okay, so remember this point. Okay, these classifications are on the basis of electrical conductivity only. Okay, so the first type or first classification of the solid on the basis of this electrical conductivity is what? Your conductors. Okay, and in case of conductors, the range of this specific conductivity of that solid is actually 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 7 ohm inverse per meter. Okay, so that means if a substance or a solid can exhibit this some specific conductance value in between this range, then that solid will be your conductor. So now coming to the second categories, which is known as insulator. Okay, an insulator can be defined as the solids or the substance which can exhibit the specific conductance value in the range between 10 to the power minus 20 to 10 to the power minus 10 ohm inverse per meter. Then those type of solids are known as insulator. Okay, and examples of these insulators are like woods, plastics, etc. So, and the last, that means the third categories, which is known as semiconductor. Okay, in between this conductor and insulator. That's why it is known as semiconductors. Okay, and semiconductors are defined as the substance or the solids which can exhibit the specific conductivity in the range between 10 to the power minus 6 to 10 to the power 10 to the power minus 6 to 10 to the power 4 ohm inverse per meter are known as semiconductor. Okay, some examples of semiconductors are like silicon, germanium, etc. Okay, now let us discuss about the electrical conductivity of metals only. Okay, so only metals. Okay, so we already know that electrical conductivity is due to the what, due to the speed of the movement of the electrons and the speed of the movement of the what, the ions. Okay, but in case of metals we don't have any ions, because in which actually we observe ions in electrolytic solutions. Okay, so what is electrolytic solutions? Actually when we add some ionic solids, like let's suppose sodium chloride or potassium chloride. Okay, let's suppose sodium chloride, a salt, okay, normal salt, in water. So water is what, solvent, and the solvent must have higher dielectric constant, okay, epsilon value. Okay, so in case of water it is almost 80, so it can actually break the ionic bond between the ions and they can dissociate into their ions, and this dissociated ion can move freely in that electrolytic solution, which result the electrical conductivity behavior. Okay, but in case of these metals, they don't have ions. Okay, so the electrical properties or the electrical conductivity is only due to the flow of electrons. Okay, and this the conductivity of that is the electrical conductivity in case of metal is depends upon the number of valence electrons which are present, or you can say that available per atoms of what, the metals. Okay, and the atomic orbitals will going to mix with each other, and they will going to form some molecular orbitals, and there are many molecular orbitals. Okay, they will going to form many molecular orbitals by mixing of many atomic orbitals. Okay, and the thing is that the energy of these molecular orbitals are comparable, or they are similar to each other. Okay, so they will going to actually give a band of energy, and this band of energy is known as the energy band. Understand? And this band is known as actually the valence band. Understand? So if this band is partially filled with electrons, that means if the electrons are partially filled, or they are not completely filled by the electrons, and if the valence band is completely filled by the electrons, then the valence band may be overlap with the higher energy band, which is known as conduction bands. Okay, then also the metal can conduct electricity. That means there are two conditions. The first condition is what, the valence band should be filled partially by electrons, and the second condition is that if the valence band is completely filled by the electrons, then the valence band must be overlap with the higher energy band, which is known as conduction band, to conduct electricity. That means if these two conditions can be fulfilled by that metal, then that metal can conduct electricity easily, or you can say that the electron can flow easily. Now let us suppose that the valence band is completely filled, so it is not possible to conduct electricity, no? And also let's suppose the gap between the the valence band and the conduction band is very high. Okay, so the electron cannot jump from the valence band to the conduction bands. So in such cases, the we cannot get the electrical conductivity, so this will going to act like a insulator. Moreover, this band gap zone is also known as forbidden zones, because no electron can jump from the valence band to the conduction bands because of the large band gaps. Okay, so this gap is known as forbidden zones also. Okay, so now let us discuss about the semiconductor. Okay, so in case of semiconductor, actually the band gap between this valence band and conduction bands, this band gap is actually not as large as the insulator, as and the these bands will not going to overlap with each other. Okay, so that means there will be some band gap, but this band gap is small energy gap. Okay, thus these three are actually the explanations of the electrical conductivity nature of the three different types of solids, okay, on the basis of electrical conductivity actually. And these are what the conductors, insulators and semiconductors. Okay, so if somebody will ask you about or if somebody will ask you to differentiate the insulator, semiconductor and conductors on the basis of band gaps, then you have to use these concepts. Okay, again the semiconductors are very important. Okay, actually they are often used in the electronic device, and also they are used in solar cells. Okay, so they are very important, so we need to know about them. Okay, in case of the semiconductors, actually the band gaps are very small. Okay, so we already know these things. So the sunlight energy is sufficient to excite the electron from the valence band to the conduction band in some specific semiconductors like silicons, germaniums, like that. Okay, so they are used in solar cell to harvest the solar energy, and actually we can convert the solar energy into what the electrical energy, and this is known as actually photovoltaics. Okay, and nowadays the researchers are concentrated on these photovoltaic devices, that means the solar cells, and also the energy storage device like battery, and also the super capacitors. Okay, and super capacitors are mainly two types, and between these two types, one types of super capacitors are they act like batteries. Okay, so actually they can store a huge amount of charge in a very small devices. Okay, so those devices are known as supercapacitors. And we already talk about the examples of semiconductors, and those are mainly silicons and germaniums, and they are sometimes known as intrinsic semiconductors. Okay, and also we know that these semiconductors exhibits a very little amount of electrical conductivity, and even we can actually improve the conductivity nature or conductivity behavior of the semiconductors by using some impurities or by applying some impurity inside these semiconductors. Okay, so actually what we are doing, we are actually adding some impurity in that pure intrinsic semiconductors, na? So this type of addition of this impurity to the pure semiconductors is known as doping process. Okay, so we can dope the intrinsic semiconductor by two different ways. The first way is to use some electron rich elements, and the second way is to use some electron deficient elements in comparison to the silicon to dope the intrinsic semiconductors, which is silicon or germaniums. Okay, and due to the presence of the impurity in these intrinsic semiconductors, some defects are observed, and these defects are known as electronic defects. Okay, let us first discuss about the first way, which is the doping by using electron rich elements. Okay, so that means group 15 elements. We know that silicon and germaniums are in the group 14 elements. Okay, so that means they have total 4 outermost electrons in their valence shells. So that means what silicon can form total 4 covalent bonds with 4 neighboring silicons. Okay, Similarly, in case of germanium also, the germanium can form total 4 covalent bond with the 4 neighboring germanium's elements. Okay. Now let us dope this intrinsic silicon semiconductor by using group 15 elements like arsenic or phosphorus. Okay. So let us suppose we dope this intrinsic silicon semiconductor by using arsenic. Okay. As we already know that the arsenic is in group 15 elements, so it will contains totals 5 valence electrons. Okay. So when this arsenic is inside that intrinsic silicon semiconductor, then that arsenic will going to occupy at one lattice sites, and we already know that arsenic has total 5 valence electrons, and between this actually among these 5 electrons only 4 will going to form bond with the 4 neighboring silicon atoms. Okay. And that one electron will going to remain free. Okay, so this is because of this presence of these free electrons, or you can say the mobile electrons, the electrical properties of this semiconductor will going to vary. Okay. And actually the electrical conductivity will going to increase because of this the presence of this free electrons which is coming from the arsenic. Okay. Since the electrical properties is enhanced because of this presence of negatively charged electrons, so these types of semiconductors are also known as n-type semiconductors. And the free electron which is actually coming from this arsenic is also known as delocalized electrons. Okay. Similarly, we can use some group 13 elements to dope this intrinsic silicon semiconductor like boron or aluminum. Okay, but here we just use boron to dope this intrinsic silicon semiconductors. And in case of boron, we already know that the boron has total 3 electrons in their outermost orbitals, and since the boron is boron occupies one lattice site, and it is surrounded by total 4 silicon elements or atoms. So actually this bond will going to form total 3 covalent bond by sharing its 3 electrons. Okay, so the boron cannot form a covalent bond with the 4th silicon because it does not have the electrons to form the covalent bond with that of 4 silicons. Okay, understand. So there will be some positive holes present because of this absence of the 4 electrons in case of this boron. Okay. So the electrical conductivity of this types of semiconductor which is doped by this boron is because of this presence of the holes. Okay. So actually the conductivity is coming from the movement of this hole. Okay, actually the conductivity is because of the movement of this hole. Okay, so in actual case, actually one electron will going to come from the neighboring atoms to that hole to to fill up that hole by one electron. Okay, so because the one electron is coming from the neighboring atoms to fill up that hole, so one hole will going to generate at that neighboring atoms. Okay, so that means the hole will going to go to or flow to a direction opposite to the flow of the electrons. Okay, since because of this movement of this positively charged hole enhances the electrical conductivity of the semiconductor, so this type of semiconductor is also known as positive type semiconductor, or sometimes it is known as p-type semiconductors. Okay, so now let us discuss about the applications of the n-type and p-type semiconductors. Okay, so we can actually combine the n-type and p-type semiconductors in different way to prepare some electronic components. Okay, so there are many components are there, electronic components actually, like most important components like diode and transistors. Okay, so they are actually used in most electronic components like your mobile phone, your the laptops, TV. Okay, so actually in case of diode, diodes are actually prepared by using p-type and n-type semiconductors. Okay, so one p-type semiconductor is placed over the n-type semiconductors, but it is not like that. There are some technique to prepare that those diodes. and the work of the diode is actually to rectify the alternative current into direct current. Alternative current means what? The AC, okay, and the direct current means DC, okay. So we can use diode to convert or AC into DC, understand? Or sometimes diodes, these diodes are also used as a switch, okay, switch off that electronic device, not the switch of your which are in your home. That means the switch of the fan switch or the light switch, it's not diode, but the diodes are actually in electronic circuits, and in the electronic circuits they will going to act as a switch. And the second one is transistor, okay. So in case of transistor, we can use actually the combinations like NPN. That means first a layer of N type semiconductor, then P type semiconductor, then again N type semiconductor, and also we can use P and P types of semiconductors to prepare the transistors, okay. And the work of the transistors are mostly to detect and amplify the signals, radio signals, or the some sound signals, okay. So basically these transistors are used in radios, okay. And a very important applications of this N-type and P-type semiconductors is solar cell, okay, or you can say solar panel. So actually nowadays the researchers are very focused on these two main research topics. One is solar cell and other is energy storage device, which includes battery and supercapacitors also, okay. So supercapacitors are actually the capacitor which can store a very large amount of charge inside them, okay. The solar cells are like diodes, and they are known as photodiodes, which are used actually to convert the light energy which are coming from the sun into electrical energy. Moreover, we already know that the silicon and germaniums are in the group 14 elements of the periodic tables, okay. And we already know that they have 4 valence electrons, so they will going to form, that means one silicon will going to form 4 covalent bond with the 4 silicons, like diamonds, okay. In diamond, what? One carbon is formed 4 covalent bond with 4 carbon by forming a tetrahedral shape, okay. So like this, actually the silicon and germanium also going to form this type of 4 bonds, okay, understand? Nowadays the researchers successfully able to prepare some mixtures of the elements from the group 13 and 15 or group 12 and 16, okay. They actually prepare, or they actually able to mix them in a proper ratio to prepare or to simulate average valencies of 4, like silicon and germanium. Some examples of this these compounds which are obtained from group 13 and 15s are indium antimony, aluminium phosphorus, and gallium arsenic. And gallium arsenic can exhibit a very fast responsive characteristics, and because of this they can be used in different types of electronic devices like solar cells, etc., okay. And the examples of the compounds which are obtained from the group 12 and 16s are the zinc sulfide, cadmium sulfide, cadmium selenium, and mercury and tellurium, okay. So if you notice these examples of these compounds carefully, then we notice that there will be some different elements are present, okay, like zinc sulfide. So in case of zinc sulfide, let's suppose the electronegativity of the zincs and the electronegativity of the sulfides are different. So that means what? That means the bonds between this zinc and sulfide, and also for the other compounds also, they have some different electronegativities, okay. So that means the bond will be what? The bond will be not purely covalent, so some ionic character will be there, okay. And actually the magnitude of these ionic characters, or percentage of the ionic characters, present in that covalent bond is depends upon the difference of the electronegativity between this the elements which are present in that compounds. Okay, so in other words, what we can say that if the electronegativity difference between the elements which are present in that compounds are high, then the ionic characters which is present in that covalent bond is also high. Moreover, the oxides of transition metals actually they exhibit different types of electrical properties. Okay, so as for example, if you consider one row of the transition metals and their oxides, let's suppose titanium oxide or chromium dioxides and the rhenium trioxide, they exactly behave like metals. That means their electrical conductivity is very high, and specifically the rhenium trioxide, okay, it will going to behave exactly same like copper, metallic copper. Okay, and also the appearance is of this rhenium trioxide is also similar like copper. Okay, and certain other oxides of this this same row like vanadium oxide or vanadium dioxide or vanadium trioxide and also titanium trioxide, they exhibit metallic as well as non-metallic, that means insulating properties. Okay, depending upon the temperature. So that means what we understand that in case of the oxides of transition metals, they will exhibit different types of behaviors, different types of electrical behaviors depending upon the environments or depending upon their structures. Okay, and interestingly, titanium dioxide behaves as semiconductor. Okay, so nowadays researchers use this titanium dioxide in the field of photovoltaics. Okay, that means solar cells. So this is all about the electrical behavior or electrical properties of metals, and in the next class we will discuss about the magnetic behaviors or magnetic properties of solids.